Good evening. I'll call the Public Safety Committee meeting to order. We'll start with roll call, please.
Tammy Roll.
Here.
Randy Swiggin.
Here.
Doug Brunner.
Here.
And Candace is absent and Kevin is not here yet.
Very good. So hopefully us, we have a quorum, so we're good to meet. Next pledge allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. For the record, Kevin is here. He's late.
Welcome, Kevin. All you supposed to pledge. Public comment. This is an opportunity for anyone to address the PSC on any issue. Please observe the time limit of 3 minutes. While the PSC encourages input from residents, it may not discuss or act on any issue that is not duly noticed on the agenda. I don't believe we have any slips.
Nope. And the only people on right now are the presenters for line item number 6.
All right, next subject number 5, approval of minutes from the March 15th, 2022 PSC meeting. Any discussion before we entertain a motion? All right,
I'll move to accept the minutes.
Got a motion from Randy, a second from Tammy. Any further discussion? All those in favor of approving the minutes from March 15th, 2022 signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed signify by saying the same.
Okay,
Passes unanimously. Item 6, traffic safety project presentation by Safe Communities Madison, Dane County.
I'm gonna stop sharing my screen so you guys can share the PowerPoint presentation.
Okay, is that you, Tom, your version?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, so I guess we will begin. So I'll just introduce myself first and Tom can introduce himself. So my name is Lisa Bullard Cawthorn, and I'm part of the Dane County Traffic Safety Commission. And I'm involved in a traffic safety project, which is to expand the membership and the chart, the activities of the Traffic Safety Commission. And Tom, I'll let you introduce yourself and then I'll talk a little further in a minute.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Tom Duvall from Safe Communities. I'm the Injury Prevention Program Coordinator, and have been working on this project with Lisa.
Okay, if you want to go to the next slide. So what I wanted to also say about this project, so we've been looking at this. One of the things that we felt was important as we look at the Dane County Traffic Safety Commission and thinking about making sure that we get input from across the county and not just focusing on Madison, that we made this decision that we wanted to reach out to local communities. And so we originally divided the county into 14 areas, and Cross Plains was originally joined up with Middleton, but we made in the survey that we did was joint, but we made this decision that we were going to separate out when we did the listening session so that the appropriate people would be attending the meeting. So the people, I don't think I need to really go through this because this is part of the Public Safety Committee. And obviously, you know that the police department is there, and I understand that Public Facilities is unable to join today. And we were originally thinking this would be the village and the town, but I don't think we have anybody on the call that has anybody from the sheriff's office or anybody representing the town. So Tom, if you want to go to the next slide. So the purpose of this listening session is we did a traffic safety survey. We want to provide the traffic safety survey results back to the community. We want to prioritize the traffic safety issues. We want to hear about plans to address locations of concern. And we want to start and relay a process for getting community solutions. Next slide. So we're going to start out with the data. So we're going to look at, I'm going to first share information about crashes in all of Dane County. I'm going to look at the county fatal crash trends. We're going to look at fatal and injury crashes within your community, as well as contributing factors to those crashes. So the first thing that I'm going to start out with is if we look at Dane County, we have seen, you can see that over the last, 10 years or so that we had an average of about, between 30 and 35 fatal crashes in the county. And we had a bit of a jump in 18, but we had a huge jump in 2021. And the interesting thing is that this is when there weren't as many cars on the road, but we were seeing an increase in the fatalities. So we went from an average of about 30 to 50 in 2021. Next slide, Tom. And this is where these crashes are occurring. So this is happening all over the county. It isn't, yes, there are, there's quite a few in the Madison area, but you can see that these are spread all over the county. And Tom, if you could. So one of the things that I wanted to share, so when we originally set this up, we were looking at both the village and the town. And so this is the number of crashes that have occurred that includes both the village and the town. But I've got data in front of me here. So 46 crashes, 5 fatalities, and 57 injuries. And when I look at just the village of Cross Plains, and I'll show a map shortly, we're looking at 12 total crashes in the 5-year period. There were no fatalities and there were 14 injuries if we just look at the village. Next slide. So I want to share some of the contributing factors that I have relating to these crashes. And what I'm going to do is share this and I'll tell you what it is specific to the village. Because we just found out recently that we weren't including the town. I'm going to share this first and then give you the other information. So what we're looking at is the number of crashes that were relating to speed. There were 11 crashes that were speed related, 1 fatality and 17 injuries. In the village of Cross Plains, there was 1 injury that was involved with speeding. And we also had, with the speeding, this is something that we're seeing across the county where you're seeing that combination of impaired driving and speeding. And we did see that in the village of Cross Plains as well. The other area that is a contributing factor is distracted driving. So there were 9 crashes related to distracted driving with 11 injuries. When I look at it specifically to Cross Plains, there were 4 crashes that were distracted driving related. When we look at no seatbelt, that's actually not just seatbelts, that's occupant protection. So if it's a bicyclist, it's not wearing a helmet. If it's a motorcycle driver, it's not wearing a motorcycle helmet. So there were 8 crashes that were relating to not using occupant protection, and 3 of those happened, 3 of the crashes in Cross Plains were related to that. And those were all, so 3 of the crashes and resulting in 3 injuries. And then the impaired driving. So 7 of the crashes were impaired driving related. I mentioned before that we see this pattern of impaired driving and speeding and not wearing seatbelts. And in the village of Cross Plains, we're looking at 2 of the crashes. There were 2 injuries that occurred that were relating to impaired driving in the village of Cross Plains. So next slide, Tom. So we wanted to look at the teen driving so I'm hearing an echo. Oh, that's just someone talking in the background. Okay. So there were 7 crashes that were teen drivers across the county, and there were 11 crashes, those that were over 65. There was 1 crash that was pedestrian related, and that was in the village of Cross Plains. There were 2 crashes and resulting in 2 injuries that were bicyclists, and 1 of those was in the village.
Because it'll be worse if I mute it. You're muted.
Hello?
Yep, there you are. We're experimenting. We can barely hear you. So if you could speak up just a tad bit, it would be helpful. We tried to connect via phone and try to just do a speaker. And when we did that, we created an exchange. And so that's what you were hearing, but you can go ahead, continue on. Thank you.
Okay, so I'm sorry. I'm looking to see if there's something I can adjust on my computer. So can you hear me now?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay. Okay, so so you heard the part about out of those 6 motorcycle crashes, 1 of those were in the village.
Yes.
So Tom, if you want to go to the next slide. So this is a slide that actually looks at a map of where these crashes are occurring. Now, this is a map of both the village and the town. And, you know, I mean, obviously you all know where the village is, but you can see, and I don't think you can see me using my arrow on the slide, but we do know that that area, which is, you know, north of the upper part of this picture is where the village is. And you can see where those crashes are occurring. So if you look at just the village and that red dot that it's pretty far back. So it looks like, you know, so we're looking at a lot of things that are occurring on 14. That fatal crash. So the red are fatal crashes. The orange are serious injuries and the yellow are minor injuries. And all of the crashes that have occurred in the village, fortunately, they're serious and minor injuries. There were no fatalities. The 2 fatalities that you see up near the village were actually in the township. So this is where these crashes are occurring, and it's, you know, it's mostly on Main Street. We're also looking at, is that P when we go up further north, there's a couple that are up in that area as well. So Tom, if you want to go to the next slide. So what we wanted to do next is share with you the survey results. So we had 24 surveys that were returned for the village and the town of Cross Plains. 17 of those survey responses were from the village of Cross Plains. And then I'm going to share some of the data with you. So what we're going to do next is we're going to look at the issues that came up from the survey respondents. And then we're going to look at creating a poll today so people can weigh in on that and actually take a poll and vote on it, and we can share that information with you. So Tom, if you want to, so I'm going to start out by sharing the survey results. So this is actually for the whole of Area 3, which is Middleton and Cross Plains. And the reason why I decided to share with you all of it is because one of the things we found in the survey is that there were residents of Middleton that were talking about things that were happening in Cross Plains, and there were residents of Cross Plains that were talking about things in Middleton. So I'm going to share all of it. So when we look at the results of the survey, there were 89 that mentioned speeding. And I will add, first of all, I wanted to ask, was there anybody that's part of the meeting that actually participated in the survey that we had posted? I don't know who on the call is actually part of the committee and who's actually joined the meeting. Is there
Um,
anybody?
I don't see anybody that was part of the survey. Everybody's shaking their heads. And what you're seeing here is the only people on with us is Erica, who is the EMS director. And then yourselves and myself are the only ones online. And the rest in here at the Village Hall are committee members, along
Okay.
with Lieutenant Reddy, who showed up as a guest to answer any questions since he was part of the committee.
Okay. So, and I apologize, Kim, I wanted to, make a comment about that at the very beginning that, Kim was both the chief and lieutenant were very instrumental in setting all of this up. So I wanted to acknowledge that. So if we go back to the survey, the way that the survey was set up is that people would talk about general issues. And these were all the categories that they had to respond to. And then they also had an opportunity to mention locations of concern. And they actually, so we counted those as well. So these are a combination of those. So 89 responses related to speeding. There were 60 responses that mentioned failure to yield to pedestrian and bicyclist, and I see that spelled wrong. Inattentive and distracted driving, there were 60 responses to that. And the aggressive and reckless driving, 56. And there were 25 that mentioned drug or alcohol impaired driving. So Tom, if you want to go to the next slide. So what we wanted to do today was actually for those that are attending the meeting, and I'm assuming Chief, that even though there are no community members, that you would still like to do this to get a sense from your committee members perhaps, and from the EMS director about what they think. Are there additional traffic safety issues? For Erica, I would very much like to know, for you to participate in this because you are going on the scene and seeing these things all the time. You or somebody within EMS is having to go to the scene. So I'm going to assume that you still want us to do this poll.
Yeah, I think it's important. And the other reason is that this meeting is recorded and then it's posted online and shared on YouTube. And so
Okay.
people do get an opportunity to see what we've been doing for business. And it may generate other conversations as we continue to work at public safety issues.
Okay, so Tom, if you want to go to the next slide. So as we set up the poll, and Tom is all ready with the poll to share the link, but before we do that, what I wanted to do, and this is Erica, where I wanted to get your opinion about this, and that is, so right now the poll is set up to include the categories that I shared information from the poll, from the survey. So speed, failure to yield to pedestrians and bicyclists, inattentive and or distracted driving, aggressive or reckless driving, and drug or alcohol impaired driving. So what I did is I'm sharing the things that I mentioned before that came up as far as the crash data goes. And, there are some things that I brought up with the data. For instance, there's this pattern of, having drug or alcohol impaired that also includes, speeding and some other things. Or maybe there's some things from an EMS perspective that you see that you've noticed when you go to the scene of a crash that contributed toward that crash. So we wanted to give you an opportunity before we actually put the poll up to see if there's any other categories, any other things that you want us to list on the poll that you notice when you're driving through the village that you want us to include as part of that list. So we want to first leave an opportunity for that to occur.
Sure. So this is actually a pretty good list. At the end of the day, we can only take our patients' words for what happened with the incident. The crashes we've noticed, it has been kind of a combination of speed and inattentive driving. some drug and alcohol related issues, but I haven't noticed anything really outside of this list per se. Probably mostly the inattentive and distracted driving is the biggest one we've noticed.
Yeah, and one thing I wanted to mention when, since you're on the phone is that on the call is that when I shared information relating to, the severity of the injury, when I said some of these are serious and minor, that is what's being reported. That's that's not necessarily when you get there from EMS. So somebody might look like it's serious and it's actually not as serious as it looks. And it might be the other way around. There might be something that is assigned to be a minor injury and that person, it might have, ended up as a fatality. So the severity is what's being judged when it's first reported and put on the DT 4000. And so the severity is not necessarily what you determine to be the severity. And then whatever you determine to be the severity, you don't know what ends, when they end up at the hospital, it might be different than what you thought on the scene as well. So I just wanted to make that point, that the severity is, subjective at that point in time.
I'm not sure where it falls into your metrics, but we do get some issues sometimes where it's a medical issue that caused the incident, whether it's a diabetic issue, heart attack, something like that. Diabetes, like a diabetic issue, we can obviously check for and start treating on the ambulance. Heart attack, we would have a decent idea if that's what was going on, but we wouldn't know for sure depending on the patient presentation. But that could be something maybe to add, but that's kind of a harder one to differentiate until you get the follow-up and everything. So
right. So Tom, if you want to add that one to the list. So yeah, we just wanted to, be able to have you add some things. So right now, the way that we have this set up is that for those that are attending the meeting right now, either use the QR code and you can go to the poll, or Tom has the link on there. And so what we want everyone to do is go to the poll and choose your top 3 issues that you think would be important to address in the future for the village of Cross Plains. So it sounds like we don't have anyone from the town. And I'll be talking later about how we're going to use this data. It's data for you to have within the village to determine what your focus is. And it's also going to be shared back to the Traffic Safety Commission. So if people want to go ahead and do that, and we'll give you a little bit of time to do that. When we provide information back to all of you, we will share with you the top issues that came up from the survey respondents as well as this meeting. And we'll share them separately as well as combine them for you to have a total number. So Tom, are there still some that are trickling in?
We have 2 responses right now.
Okay, so are other people going to take advantage of the poll and let us know what you think is important? Some of the committee members represent constituencies, so it'll, be helpful to hear your perspective of what you see. So after looking at after seeing the data and seeing the results of the survey, we really want to know what you think are, the top issues that rise to the top for you. So we'll give it a little bit more time to see if anybody else is going to respond. How many public safety committee members are there?
There are 4 members.
Okay. So we're hoping for at least 4.
I was gonna say mine comes through as my Gmail address, not my Cross Plains EMS email address, just so you guys know, we've tried fixing it and it's just easier to keep it with the Gmail.
Oh, no problem. We're not looking at any of that. We're just looking at the numbers. So I see that there is
I
there
have 4
some,
responses now.
pardon?
I have 4 responses.
Okay. And the person that pops up, Steve, are you a member of the community?
No, that's the Steve that you know.
Oh, Steve, sorry. So I will introduce Steve now that he's on the call. Steve is also part of our project and he's the communication consultant. So when we get all this information back, Steve's going to be helping us to develop messages to get out to the community. So, okay, great. So yes, Steve, I guess you're not you don't live in the village of Cross Plains. So yeah, it's probably not a good idea if you add to that. So what we'll do right now is, Tom, if you want to go ahead and share what came out of the poll. Okay, so what we're looking at, the top 3 issues are speed. Well, Tom, I'll let you speak to it.
Thank you. Yeah, so our top issues we see here are speed, inattentive, distracted driving, aggressive, and reckless driving.
Okay. Aggressive, and we'll share this information with you as well. Okay. All right, so if you want to go to the next slide. So what we wanted to do next is that we wanted to actually, before we go there, Erica, because I have you on involved in this, I don't want to put you on the spot, but you have a different perspective than any of us have in terms of being at the scene, and maybe there's something that you want to comment on relating to those crashes that you go to where somebody's unbelted. Is there a comment? Is there anything in terms of behavior or anything else where you're seeing more severe results as a result of someone not being belted or somebody that is speeding? I think you probably have a better perspective on that than anybody.
From the calls we've had, most people have been belted. I don't know of any recently where they were unbelted. And it really kept them from being severely injured. We had one where a manure truck rolled. They kind of hit the ditch and rolled the truck a bit, and he was able to walk out of the truck before we got there and actually walk to the ambulance with us. So the call comes in and it sounds terrible, because it's a rollover. You're
Right.
assuming it's going to be a higher acuity, and then here's your patient walking around. So we've noticed that like seatbelts do definitely help people. Just in the past years, and this isn't necessarily pertinent to Cross Plains, but if someone wasn't wearing a seatbelt, they had just a very unique reason they didn't want to wear it, whether it was the old fable of, well, this person wore their seatbelt and it cut them in half and they passed away during the, you know what I mean? Like just that weird thing, and that's what they believe in now, so they're never going to wear their seatbelt. And you just kind of have to let that go. You're not going to change their minds, but most people have been really good about wearing their seatbelts that we come in contact with. So
Right. Yeah, so that's really helpful. And we saw that fortunately, there have been no fatalities in the village. And, and it could be a result of that you're noticing that most people are belted. So just wanted to give that opportunity before we moved on to the location specific. So now what we want to do is we want to move on to that part of the listening session. So Tom, if you want to move on to the next slide. So what I want to do before we talk about the location specific is I want to just set the stage. And I apologize. I think Tom's using a Google Docs. And so the PowerPoint that was put together has these weird, the words are sort of messed up a little bit. So I apologize about that. So the first thing that I wanted to bring up, just so that all of you know that are part of the committee and weren't necessarily part of the planning. And that is that all of the responses that we received from the village of Cross Plains and the town, and this is true with Middleton, is that all of those responses were reviewed. And I'd even take that a step further. I know, because it was communicated to me from the police department, that they looked at those results and actually did some efforts as a result of what they saw. So all of that information has been looked at, and we're going to bring forward what the top issues were, but I wanted to make sure that everyone knew that everything was reviewed, and you know, various things happened as a result. We also wanted to have an opportunity to talk about some of the efforts that have been made to address the crash locations and concerns. And we have the police department that's going to share some of that information, not only about things that have already happened, things that might be happening in the future, and things that might be looked at as future considerations. So I wanted to make sure that I framed it that way before we actually moved on to the actual top location. So Tom, if you want to move on to the next slide. So, so what we found when we looked at the results of the survey, and this is probably no surprise, and if we go back to the crashes that I shared, certainly Main Street was an area, 14 Main Street in the village, that came up as a top concern. Church Street also came up, and do you pronounce that Thines? Thines Street. Thinis? Oh, okay. So Thinis is another area that came up, and I noticed that even, you know, because that comes from Airport Road and leads into that, right? So in the village, it becomes Thinis. So that's another area. And again, you saw that was supported by the crashes. And just because some of those responses that we got from the town of Cross Plains, it is true, these are in the town, but some of the residents of the village actually might have mentioned this. So I'll just mention that the top issues that came up for the town was County Highway P, especially at West Mineral Point Road. And again, 14. So 14, not only in the village, but 14 as it's in the township as well. So these are the top areas that have come up as a result of the survey. And what the police department felt were, you know, issues that they get complaints about as well. So Tom, if you want to go to the next slide. So what we wanted to do next is allow the police department to actually talk in general terms about some of the things that you're doing. And I know that there's been a lot, and I think that it's really important for everyone to be aware of all the work that you've done, not only, you know, overall generally, but also responding to some of those things that came up as a result of the survey. So if you want to go ahead, Chief.
Okay, thank you. So these are issues that we put as part of this presentation. These are the things that we are doing already. We've actually been doing them even before the study came out. When I took over in 2020, I was bombarded almost at every meeting with issues of traffic because of all the high volume of traffic that goes up and down Main Street. I did look at our crash data, and obviously, you know, 12 crashes is 12 too many, but it wasn't a significant amount of crashes, you know, that by any means, but definitely some fatals outside of our community, and those were the complaints. So these are the things that we have been doing. We've do deployments. You might have seen us where we have multiple squad cars working at a given time and making multiple stops. We just did a crosswalk deployment where we, in 2 hours, we stopped 17 cars that violated traffic laws with regards to crossing guards or crossing the street. We do a lot of informative stuff on Facebook. Anybody that follows us on Facebook knows that we're on there constantly writing about something safety-wise. We've done other things, creative things like doing the coffee with the chief. We're going to be starting a new program here soon, custard with the officers, something in just to be a little more creative, maybe at Culver's or at the other ice cream place, to just get people to come out and talk to us. And then obviously stationary information, we schedule people to, and say, hey, we need to concentrate on these areas and those kind of things. And then our speed trailer, you see that all throughout the village. We move it around quite a bit, especially during the summer months. So yeah, this is a good compiled list of what we're already doing.
Yeah, and I think the other thing that's worth mentioning is that, I know that, I mean, you could say, oh, there were only 12 crashes because we had the original number of across the village and the town. But the other thing is that, you are doing a lot of work and doing these deployments, and, as a result of that, as a result of the education and the deployments that you're doing, there are less crashes. And, it's also a result of the work that you're doing, and you're catching those near misses. I just shared with you the crash data. I didn't share the data of the result of your deployments and the people that you're pulling over or educating because you're seeing that they're driving too fast, or, they're not yielding to pedestrians. So even though I shared only the crash data, it isn't to say that there aren't, a multitude of issues that are going on. It didn't result in a crash, thank goodness. And I think that part of it has to do with the good work that you're doing to try to prevent that from happening. So Tom, if you want to go to the next slide. So I put this up, and Chief, you could speak to this, and I made a mistake of saying four-way stop, but Lieutenant shared with me because he looked at the data and he wanted to share some of the things that had already started happening as a result of the complaints and the issues that were identified in the survey. So if you just want to speak to that.
Yeah, so you're actually speaking to the committee that had these things in place. So anything public safety comes here first. And so these orange flags and these intersections were dealt with early on my time here, and this committee actually made recommendations for these things to be installed. And then after that, public facilities will take the recommendation from the village board. So there's quite a process, a step process to get this to happen. But this committee is actually the leader in making sure that these initiatives are weighed not only by the community, but by us as subject matter experts, and then themselves as citizens and people that represent the community.
Okay, great. So I think it's worth noting that those are two locations that actually did come up in the survey. So, and part of this listening session is about letting people know that your municipality has responded to some of the things that people are complaining about. And so I think it's worth noting for that reason. So if you want to move on to the next slide, Tom. So what we wanted to do right now is we wanted to give people an opportunity to mention other locations. And I know we don't necessarily have at this point anybody from the public. We do have the results of the survey, but what we wanted to do is, and we're not having a survey right now, we're going to allow an opportunity for people to identify issues of concern. This is a listening session, so we wanted to be able to add to the location concern. So Tom, if you want to go to the next slide. So I think that before we do that, however, I just wanted to make the point about risky driving behavior. We don't have any members of the public, but members of the public hopefully will be listening to this. So we know that, there's, if you want to go to the next slide, Tom. So one of the things that I shared before, and this is Village in Town, but I did show that there are, and this is not the right slide. I did share information with you about the risky driving behavior, about the speeding, the impaired driving, distracted driving, and unbelted. And this was true across both the village and the town, as well as just in the village. And so we are seeing this risky driving behavior. If you so if you want to go to the next slide. So what I wanted to talk about, just to sort of frame it before we get back to the risky driving, or to the voting of location specific, is that we can't engineer or enforce our way out of this, that there's unsafe driving that we're seeing in the village, that is people that live in the village as well as people that are outside of the village. And we have to talk about, as a community, what we're going to do about it. And everybody has a role to play, and the community has a role to play. And so we wanted to just set that up for further discussion. So Tom, if you want to go to the next slide. So can we go back? I don't know what happened with this. Tom, did you have a slide for people bringing up the listening session? I don't know what happened to that slide.
I don't believe so. Whatever you sent me.
Okay, so if you want to go back to additional concerns. And I'm just going to have that as a placeholder. So what we actually left for this conversation today was to enable people to bring up other locations of concern. We did get, as I mentioned before, we identified issues, the top issues. But if there are people that are on the committee, or Erica, from your perspective, we wanted to give an opportunity to allow people to bring up other locations that we can pass on. And the chief was going to lead this. And I apologize that the wrong slide is in there, but this was that time to allow for people to actually bring up additional locations of concern. So if we wanted to allow time for that, and I don't know how you wanted to do that with the committee members, but it is an opportunity for you to do that.
I think if anybody has anything they'd like to add, they can. There's not very many of us here, so I think it's just a free for all. Whoever wants to add something that you'd like to document for the future.
If you think about the the map that we showed in terms of the crashes, if it would be helpful, Tom, you could sort of scroll back to that to just show people what the map looks like. And just to see if there's other locations, there we are, that people feel strongly about for what you're seeing of the crash data, or what they see as they're driving through the village. Are there particular locations that people want to bring up?
I'm just gonna caveat this, that the problem with what we're doing right now is that this committee sees all of this, and we receive a lot of information, and we've been dealing with a lot of these issues. So I highly doubt that anybody's going to have any additional locations, because we see all of these complaints. We receive the complaints of speeding, of people going through stop signs, trying to drop speed limits down. And so we've discussed it at length, and the locations that have been identified are locations that are identified not only before and part of the data, but are still issues. You can sit on any one of those streets and make traffic stops all day long.
Yeah.
If you wanted to. We just don't have the resources to do that.
Right. Okay. Well, we just, we set that up originally if there were members of the public that were joining, if they wanted to bring up anything else, it was an opportunity to do that. So I think, Tom, if you want to go back to that area with, this Randy. So before we actually go back, the Randy one. So before you actually, I just want to mention something about this. So I recognize that there are not members of the public that are part of this meeting right now, but there may be people that are listening. But one of the things that we want to do is we talk about solutions in your local community. We want to frame that. And so we want to share with you something that was presented from somebody from the Bureau of Transportation Safety. So we're going to go ahead and share that recording, because this is something that if the general public is listening to that we can share that with you. So we're going to go ahead with it. And Tom is going to share that. Right?
Yeah, sorry, 1 second. For some reason, it's just not showing up for me. I don't know why.
Okay.
Here it is.
Hi, everybody. As a matter of a real quick introduction here, my name is Randy Wiesinger. Retired from Dane County Sheriff's Office, and I'm currently contracted as a law enforcement liaison with the Bureau of Transportation Safety. I primarily work with county traffic safety commissions across the state, but here I have a long history with the Dane County Traffic Safety Commission. Do want to share a kind of a message, a statewide message with you, and I'm just not able to attend all the listening sessions, so I'm going to attempt to do it via this recording. So we will see how this works. Statewide, we've had and continue to have a goal of zero in Wisconsin, meaning zero preventable deaths on Wisconsin roadways. While we've made a lot of progress over the recent decades in traffic fatalities, both in Wisconsin as well as nationally, right now we seem to have a long ways to go, especially in counties like Dane County, where we've had skyrocketing fatality rates in the last couple of years. But at the end of the day, there's no other acceptable goal other than zero. And that can start right in the community that you live in. Zero preventable deaths on your roadways, zero preventable deaths on Dane County roadways. And if we're all doing that across the state, eventually we can maybe get to zero in Wisconsin as well. When we look at traffic safety issues and traffic crashes, we tend to look at them through two major lenses. The first being engineering, and the second being law enforcement. We're always looking at highway design, roadway design, whether it's local, community, county, state highway network. How can we make design changes that will reduce the number of crashes and severity of crashes and save lives? Critical part of the process, no doubt about it. But engineering takes a lot of time and a lot of money. And then the second is law enforcement. We're always looking for our law enforcement partners to enforce the traffic laws. Whether it's arresting drunk drivers and stopping speeders, other, just all the traffic laws. And because at the end of the day, we know that 85 to probably in excess of 90% of traffic crashes involve a behavioral component. The driver made a bad choice, a bad decision, made a mistake. It resulted in a traffic crash. They don't happen by accident. But we truly do know that we can't enforce or engineer our way out of traffic crashes, and we certainly can't enforce or engineer our way to zero in Wisconsin. So we engage traffic safety commissions across the state. Dane County is got a long history of involving other stakeholders in the traffic safety arena, all with a focus on reducing crashes in Dane County. And now through this latest project with Safe Communities, it's really exciting that we're engaging you right at the community level, because honestly, that is where we're going to have the greatest impact of change. But again, statewide, we're kind of moving towards a new way of looking at traffic safety issues, and it's called a safe system approach. It's not new in the country. It's been around in other states, certainly internationally. Other countries have used it successfully for a number of years, but it's being adopted by our federal traffic safety partners, federal highways, and it's and there's a lot to the safe system approach that I can't really get into because of the limited time we have available. So I'm just going to kind of give you a real quick 30,000 foot overview that hopefully will leave you with an understanding of what your role here is in your community, in your county, and in the state. Safe system approach is really just acknowledging all the various layers or components to the traffic safety picture. Zero is still the goal, but it realizes a few key principles. Those are listed outside that traffic safety circle. You can see all the safe road users, safe vehicles, safe speeds, safe roadways, post-crash care. But the key principles there, right at 12 o'clock, is one of the most important ones, is that death and serious injury on our roadways is unacceptable. We've got to make sure it's unacceptable. And the key principles are kind of outlined in this graphic here. I don't have time to unpack all of them, but the reality is we're always going to have traffic crashes. Humans will make mistakes. That's a given. But we want to create a transportation system that acknowledges and accommodates those human mistakes, as well as the fact that humans don't tolerate trauma very well. And so there's a lot of different parts to that transportation system. Responsibility in the lower left there is shared by everybody. It starts with the transportation system users. And I dare say everybody, every single person on this call right now is a transportation system user. We all use the transportation system in our community, in our county, in our state at various different levels. And so it's all of our responsibility. And then on the lower right is redundancy is crucial. And that just really means that all those different components in that safe system approach need to work to increase the effectiveness or strengthen their component of the safe system approach. It's a given that one or more parts of that safe system approach is going to fail at any given time, and we need the other parts of the system to compensate. And again, with the goal of reducing the number of deaths and serious injuries on our roadway. I'm going to attempt to show a video here. It's out of Australia, but it's a really concise way of looking at the different layers of the safe system approach and how ultimately they all work together to reduce the severity of the crash.
The human body isn't designed to handle the force of a motor vehicle crash. So if we're to achieve zero deaths or serious injuries, the responsibility for safety on our roads falls on us all. We call this approach the safe system, multiple layers working together to protect you. That's the vehicle you're in, how safe you drive, the roads and safety conditions provided for you, and the speed you travel. So should something go wrong while travelling along our road network, the layers of the system are there to lessen the severity of the crash.
3, 2, 1.
It's true that mistakes on the road can be costly, but with a safe system in place, those mistakes shouldn't cost us our lives.
So in summary, reducing crash severity and actually the overall number of crashes involves each and every one of us doing our part to strengthen our part of the system. And as I said, that involves each and every one of us that use the system all the way up to the people that design it, law enforcement, and everybody in between. But traffic crashes truly are a community-based problem. Statistically, the majority of people involved in crashes are local residents of that community or that area. So it is, again, a great initiative that we have going here in Dane County with community listening sessions. We need to, work together to change the culture of acceptability, both in our community and in our county. Death and serious injuries on our roadways needs to be culturally unacceptable. So I would encourage you to continue to be engaged in this process. There'll be more community-based meetings coming in the future as well. And then again, keep an eye towards the fact that While you're a vital part of sharing your concerns in your community and what's important in your community is from traffic safety issues, realize that you are a part of the solution. It involves each and every one of us. So thank you very much for your time and attention, and drive safe.
Well, Tom is putting back up the slide. So we wanted to frame this. So this meeting today, you know, I understand is almost more like a town hall in the sense of we're, you know, sharing information back, we're framing the issues. This was another opportunity to frame the issues. And so I wanted to let people know how we're going to use this information and how we want this information to be of use for you as well. So if you want to go to the next slide. So as I mentioned at the very beginning, you know, we wanted to look at potential collaborative efforts that we could do as the Dane County Traffic Safety Commission. And I will add that the police department in Cross Plains is an active member of that group. And we want to look at countywide efforts. And it was very important to us to make sure that we got input from local communities as we're having those conversations. So the information that was gathered from the survey and the poll today will be shared back to the Traffic Safety Commission as those coming from the village of Cross Plains. The other thing is that we looked at the data overall last year and we came up with 4 priority areas. And we have work groups that are set up that are looking further at the data and are coming up with strategies. And those 4 work groups are very relevant to some of the things that we've discussed today. So the work groups include risky driving behavior, because we're seeing that all over, impaired driving, both drug and alcohol impaired driving. We have a work group that's looking specifically at pedestrian crashes. And the other one is racial disparities with traffic crashes. And Lieutenant is actually a member of one of those groups. I can't remember which one right now. I think it's is it the risky driving behavior? I think so. So anyway, so what we're hoping that we'll do is that so we're going to feed the information that we're gathering from the communities to the work groups, as well as when the work groups develop strategies, we want, like say there is an education campaign that we feel that needs to happen. And I'm glad that Steve's joining us because he'll be the one helping us with that. And if we wanted to do that countywide, then we could come back and share some, resources with you to assist you to do something at a very local level. So that's one example. And whatever other strategies that these groups come up with, we will be bringing those back to the local communities to see whether that's something that you would like to do locally, as well as think about some of the things that you want to do anyway. And if you want to go to the next slide. So before I talk about the further engagement, I think it's probably worth saying, because this is the Public Safety Committee, this is a public safety meeting. And now I have a better understanding that when we talk about some of the things that happened, it's a result of the Public Safety Committee making recommendations. So, we do know, we did this survey, we got input today, but we know that on a regular basis, there is an opportunity for people in the community to get in touch with the police department, and the police department to then share information with the Public Safety Committee. So just to give a plug that there's that ongoing opportunity on the part of the community to be able to share your concerns with the village. And that existed before. We tried to use the survey to, have another mechanism for that. And that will continue. And the Traffic Safety Committee will continue to respond to some of those things that come in. But what we also wanted to do is have an opportunity that we could then bring the community together again. So what we're hoping is that and we're hoping not just the Public Safety Committee, but we get people from the community that are willing to join in a meeting so that we can actually brainstorm ideas of what could happen at the local level. And so we're hoping that we can bring people together again in May, perhaps. We want to be able to share ideas. As you are responding as a traffic safety committee, there's probably things that you discuss in terms of recommendations. We want to be able to share those ideas with the community. And there's an opportunity to do that, as well as some ideas that come up, that you want to present to the community and then get the support of the community. But I think the bottom line is, and we've said this over and over, that many of these things have to do with risky driving behavior. And so it's going to be important for the community to play a role in having conversations about how we can address that for those that are residents of the community, and then thinking about those people that are driving through your village. So we really want to have an opportunity where we bring the community and stakeholders back together again to talk about that. This was a listening session to share data, to frame the issues. And we do want to have an opportunity to bring people back together again and actually help come up with local community solutions. And so I think if you want to just go to the next slide, Tom. So we just wanted to, there wasn't anybody here today that I think that actually responded to the survey, but if there's people that are listening to this on your website, if there are people that are listening to this on the meeting that's posted, and there's anybody that responded to the survey, we want to just thank you for doing that. We wanted to thank everyone for their input today. We got input from the Public Safety Committee, and I just want to end it with, we look forward to having an opportunity where we can gather together again, both the Public Safety Committee and members of the community, to actually help determine local community solutions. So I think we'll end it there, and thanks everybody. And I just wanted to thank both the chief and Lieutenant Reddy about helping us set this up for today. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much for coming. I was informative, and I think it just strengthens the work we're already doing and provides us some guidance. So thank you very much.
Thank you. And we'll talk further about thinking about having and that's something that the Public Safety Committee can have a conversation about, looking at the possibility of trying to do a community meeting in the future. So thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll let you get back to the rest of your meeting.
Would it be possible to get the slides with the data for the?
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. And I will make sure that when you get those slides that I include, I can create a map that's just the village, and create some of those other slides that are just the village, so that you'll have that information as well. So we can definitely do that in the next week or so, provide you with village specific for some of those data slides that I shared.
Perfect, thank you.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
Thank you. You're welcome. Bye.
Bye-bye. Okay.
All right, item 7, report of PSC officers. The chairperson, I don't really have anything other than, I think we're on the right track with education and engagement, of getting our residents involved. Improvements in some of the issues we see, I think a lot of it is local. Any other reports from PSC officers?
What I want to have is reminder and the events, the application was sent in regarding Trump Days for 2022. There's a public safety section within that event application. I did fill that out on behalf of Lions Club and Chamber, and proposed there is a one-way on Mill Creek Parkway at day of the events. running from east to west. Dumpsters implement entry, exit near PJ's and pharmacy. So it's a one day only event, and seeking some assistance from some of the other public services, fire departments helped out a few years ago when we did that, just as far as traffic control. So I believe that there's been an outreach. We did not ask for any additional. Chief Tony and I talked about this, any additional resources related to law enforcement being required for this event. It's going to be larger than likely it's ever been. Past, so there's going to be a lot of foot traffic in addition to the wine Trouble Days. As part of that, there's a wine walk, which can be up to 250 people. Wow. Yeah. So there are some things in place, and another component of that when I think about public safety is our buddies out of Sauk are going to be working with the chamber. The chamber has hired bar buddies between about 4 and 8 o'clock. There's an option that's being pursued to see if it could be extended. I haven't heard anything more on that. But I could find out. Again, that would just help get people to and from within the village along that wine walk. It's focused on those folks. And if we extend it a little bit further with some funding, we'll see if we can help get people home too, if that's an option. So as it relates to public safety, I just wanted to note that event, and it's a partner sponsored event between the Lions Club and the Chamber this year. So there's quite a few activities. It is May 7th is the Saturday.
That's the main day, correct? And it's from when to when is the gist of it all?
Yeah, I'd say about 10 o'clock a.m. till about 6 p.m. That would be the prime time, I would say, along the Mill Creek Parkway. The wine walkers will then move to Montague's, where at 7 o'clock there'll be live music there that evening, and some of the raffle and prizes from the wine walk will be done there. So we'll start to wind down, I would say, 7, 8 o'clock, but it's a full day of activity within. That's in addition to the garage sales and everything else. And just think about traffic flow and some of the stuff that we talked about here. It's just a little bit more awareness. We obviously make sure that we have signage and things like that in place, done right. So those that aren't familiar with Trouble Days passing through, they're using a little bit more caution.
Perfect. Thank you.
Very good. Report of first responders. Erica, House Point EMS Chief.
Sure. So it's been a while since I've been able to make it to one of these meetings. So I'm excited to be back because I'm now done with school. That is over. So kind of a quick annual review. 2021, our call volume was up. We finished the year with 406 calls for service, which was up from 360 calls in 2020. That number doesn't account for any calls we may have missed due to being out on another call. Our call volume for this year is already up 20% from last year. So that's kind of the same trend across all Dane County services. We're all getting busier and it's not slowing down at all. So we're keeping busy with that. 2021, we had some notable retirements. Diane Meinholz, she was the Assistant Chief Training Officer and ran as an 8 EMT. She retired after serving 17 years with us. She was with Wanakee EMS prior to coming to Cross Plains. I'm not sure the year total she was with them, but we had her for a good 17 years. Stacy Ballweg retired after serving for 13 years. Tracy, who was one of our full-timers, she retired and decided to move to Arizona to be closer to family. She was with us for 2.5 years. And another notable years of service, we have Cindy Wilkinson. She has been with us for 30 years and is getting honored at the Dane County Banquet at the end of EMS week. So it'll be May 21st. They do years of service totals, and when members hit these high numbers, they get recognized individually. It's a pretty fun event and fun for our members to go to if they can make it. Because Tracy retired, we hired a new full-timer to replace her spot, and we hired Holly. Holly started with us several years ago as a volunteer. The last year and a half, she's been running as a part-timer with us and then decided she would like to make the transition to full-time. She's been fitting in really well and she's really excited for this opportunity to now be a full-time EMT with us. 2021, we got to do some new opportunities in regards to outreach, training, and stuff like that. We partnered with Madison College. They started a high school fire and EMS cadet program. We are one of the approved ride sites for students to do ride-along shifts once they're done with their EMR certification. We got 3 of them last year. They had a ton of fun. A couple of them asked if they could sign up for some extra shifts and came back more than what the program required. So we're looking forward to continuing that partnership this year. They flip-flop. So like one semester they'll do the EMS side of it and come run with us, and then the next semester fire stuff. So they also partner with fire departments, get these students in and get used to the fire side of life as well. So it's kind of an awkward rotation. So I'm not sure if we'll have students back this fall or if we'll be the following spring semester. At the end of 2021, we actually had a call. Long story short, he is now a cardiac arrest survivor case, and we're being honored at the Dane County banquet. So Dane County EMS tracks all EMS calls in which CPR was performed on a patient. It tracks the call from start to finish, which is the final patient outcome. If these patients survive and return home and are living like a normal quality of life, they are honored as a cardiac arrest survivor. If our patient agrees or wants to go to the banquet, then the crew will also be invited to attend and everyone gets recognized for their involvement with the call. And the crew for that was actually myself and one of our EMTs, Jubilee Howe. So we're pretty proud of that one. We don't get a lot of saves, unfortunately, so it's pretty exciting when we do get one. We were awarded a grant this year through the Health Resource and Services Administration, so it is a federal grant. We were awarded just over $23,000, and that allows us to hire support personnel. So we're looking to hire 1 or 2 either part-time or LTE people to help fill our schedule. So we're excited that we were awarded that. We've been continuing recruitment efforts. We just brought on 3 new people who are all licensed and trained and ready to go, which is a huge asset instead of having to wait for someone to get through school. It's nice having some people that are ready to run. State protocols and school practice, they updated the 8 EMT level. So we're now able to carry Zofran on our trucks, which is for nausea, vomiting, that kind of stuff. And that is actually a large reason we would call Middleton for help, because these poor people can't stop vomiting and we had nothing to give them. So now we can give that, and along with our Toradol, which is a pain medication, we should be able to just help more of our patients on our own without necessarily having to call for help from Middleton. So it'll be a big help for both of our services, because Middleton, just like everyone else, is getting busier. Some equipment updates. We installed a power load unit for our cot. Previously, the crew members were responsible for holding the weight of the cot and the patient. All the cot legs would raise. There's a button we push for that, and then we would have to steer and load and unload the cot in and out of the ambulance. As you can imagine, the cot itself is not the lightest in the world, and then we work with all types of patients, which can just, add up to more back injuries, muscle strains, pains, injuries, stuff like that. So this power load unit actually fully supports the weight of the cot and the patient. It uses 2 lifting arms that come down along with the legs, and it's been a huge help with our service, especially since we're running with 2-person crews more often. We were able to update some of our blue bunker gear that we wear, like to car accident calls, or if the weather is bad. It's kind of like, think like fire gear, but ours isn't rated for fire protection, but it is for bloodborne pathogen and fluid protection. So that's been a good upgrade for some of our members. I think that's about it. EMS week is coming up in May. So the association is going to be working on their annual fundraiser. We took last year off just because we all kind of needed a break with all of the COVID insanity going on. We just kind of needed to step back and take a break, and they want to get back to it this year. So that letter will be coming out for EMS week. And then I'll share this too. I've been sharing it with my board. I am pregnant and actually due at the end of May. So we've been working very hard to get an organizational structure set up with an EMS, get the resources we needed set up for when I go on maternity leave. Once everyone is trained up and everything's ready to go, I will have a more official document to email out to everyone, including the municipalities, police, fire, the county, just anyone who needs the contact information and kind of who will be doing what tasks while I am gone. Still not quite sure when I'll be on official leave. I'm still running my normal shifts and doing all my normal work as of now. So we're just kind of waiting to see what the doctor has to say when we get to the 36-week scan and kind of how things are going to go from there. But yeah, so that document will come out so everyone has contact information. Otherwise, I think that is all I have for the EMS side for now.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you and congratulations.
Yeah, good luck.
Thank you.
Future EMS. Cross Fire Chief Justin.
So in 2021, we ended out the year at 110 calls. That's down from 125 the year before. 49 of those were in the village. Dispersed from there between all the two other townships and mutual aid calls. So far this year, we're at 29 calls, 11 of those in the village, 11 of them in the town of Cross Plains, 3 in the town of Berry, and 4 times that we went. Actually, I think all of our mutual aid have been to Middleton this year, as well Marlboro, I guess, so 3 in Middleton. Classes are starting, or are finishing, I should say, end of the semester kind of stuff. We have 4 that took the Fire 1, or that will be taking the Fire 1 certification test. Their classes are done. 11 that are in the driver operator class. Their practical is actually last weekend. They're written, I think, is next week, and 5 in the Fire 2. So between all of them, classes have been incredibly busy. Some of them are double dipping, both taking the Fire 1 and Fire 2, as well as driver operator. So Mondays and Tuesday night, they've been burning both those as well as their normal Thursday night training. So
How many drivers? I'm sorry.
11 in the driver operator class.
Okay.
Those will all be coming up here, finishing up. So taking the summer off. I'm sure a few of them will start go from the Fire 1 to the Fire 2 class coming up in the fall. Control, we have large chunk of property, 1 house and 3 barns in the town of Berry. The county bought a large chunk of land to add to Indian Lake County Park. That included those buildings. They gave us the opportunity to train those buildings. That'll be this Sunday. We're going to do live training burns and then burn the house down. And then this next Thursday, we'll be doing the training burns on the barns. So it'll be a busy week for fire training. But yeah, when we get those, we were in them last week, with smoke drills and that kind of stuff. So it'll be good training. METC is coming out. We're also partnering with Black Earth. They're going to send some firefighters on as well. So it's not something that happens every day. So it's good training. So it's been a long road. I think they notified me about it at the beginning of December. So now it's finally coming. There's a lot of asbestos removal and stuff they do to take it out. So. Next Wednesday, at our last fire board meeting, the board approved funds to remove the PFAS containing foam out of our trucks. So that is actually coming. The company is coming next Wednesday to do all the pumping. We were able to save some costs by partnering with other departments. So Maple Bluff and Stoughton will also be bringing. Maple Bluff's bringing both their trucks, and Stoughton's bringing a bunch of 5-gallon containers of foam to be properly disposed of. So once that's all done, we got to do some final flushing of the actual equipment. Which shouldn't take too long. We'll put the non-PFAS containing foam in our truck, so we'll be good to go there. Something we've been bouncing back and forth the last couple of years. So it's finally, the day has finally come here that we'll have everything pumped out and cleaned out. We've been doing a lot of grass burns, mostly the townships. I think they've done a couple of residents' backyards, that kind of stuff. So firefighters have been up doing that as weather allows. It's been kind of up and down. We've been having some really dry times where they've been canceling the burns, and then it rains the next day and then get away a couple of days. So in and out, they've been doing it, and hammering them out pretty good, I think. We started looking for new volunteers again, trying to put them out by August. I think we have 5 open lockers. So we'll try to get them in by August, and then get them in school starting the September semester, the fall semester. And then 2 weeks ago, the rapid response vehicle, we met with salesperson from Reliant Fire Apparatus, who sells Pierce, and then we met up at the company in New London that's building the pump for it, the ultra high pressure pump. So we're able to kind of look at the options for the pumps and the engine for the pump. It sounds like the truck is on track for a 2023 delivery, possibly as soon as July, but I won't hold my breath till the chassis ships from Ford. So, but we'll get it in 2023. We just don't 100% sure. We'll be doing our blueprint approvals and stuff in October, November. And then again, once the chassis ships, we'll actually have most likely a more definitive delivery date. So and that is all I have.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Very good. Thank you. Chief Foley?
I know it's been a long meeting already, so I'll try to speed it up. What you have in front of you is a copy of the, Justin can have one if he wants. I don't know if we'd have anybody else, but that one is actually for Candace. Can you give us one to Candace?
Well, should I send that?
So I'm gonna kind of go through it. If you have any questions, please let me know. Like I said, when I took over, I thought this is really important that the police department provide a synopsis, if you will, of our doings and what we're spending our time on. And I think a lot of people are going to be surprised at how busy we are and the different cases that we handle and how busy we've become. So this is the 2021 report. See on the first page is kind of contact information, table of contents. After that, you can read the chief's message. After that, we have kind of the standard things that you will always see, which will be our mission statement, our oath, and our law enforcement code of ethics. These things, this report will be available to the public, and so not only on our Facebook and on our website, but I plan to have it at different locations so people can actually see it and see what we're doing. I'll talk more about kind of the future of our website and those kind of things as we continue on. Village officials, that this page will obviously change from time to time as new members come on board. I know we already have new trustees for next year, and I know that will be at least one of the commissioners, Ed Pulowski, will be stepping down, and we'll be adding Sean Williams to that group. So there'll be some changes. Then you can see kind of the next thing is the structure, organizational structure to our department. That's kind of what it looks like. Following is the employees. So this is, these are the staff members and kind of our responsibilities and things that we are each individually involved in. Some of us are probably way too involved. But it just kind of gives you a little foresight of what we're involving ourselves in. Obviously, some of these things are not while we're working, so there's a lot of time spent by staff trying to better develop themselves and better serve the community. We're obviously missing one. Ben Miller resigned and took a job up north. I think I made you all aware of that. Tomorrow there should be the final step for the new hire. We did find a new person. He's going to be a great addition to our staff, and police commission should be finalizing that tomorrow. So we'll obviously divvy up some of these responsibilities. My philosophy has always been to try to be a well-rounded department. So find strengths of every one of our staff and develop them in those areas. So that way, because we can't all be, in every aspect of the job. But if we can develop certain officers to do certain things, then we kind of become a strong unit. And so that's kind of the goal. So once we add this next person, he'll take on some of these roles. Next is the budget. This is an addition. I didn't add this last year. To be honest, I was trying to learn how the budget cycle worked here and how the systems worked and how things came in and came out. The highlights here, though, as you can see, that $15,000, that's what we returned to the village. So we didn't use all of our money. There's reasons for that. If you look through here, so kind of the big ticket items would be meetings. So we had $9,000 for meetings and we only used 4,500. That we were still in kind of COVID mode. Meetings are our training opportunities. So that should go up. We should end up using the rest of that money as the years go on. We still trained quite extensively, but there wasn't a lot of opportunity for staff to travel away, and that's where our costs kind of eats up. So we returned some of that money, obviously. Big ticket items that are added to the budget that were not part of the budget are the body camera, the taser, and the less than lethal programs. Those all had starting positions and amounts, and we were able to come in under budget on every item, and more specifically, the less than lethal shotgun. We had a $5,000 allotment, and we only used under 2,000 to get that program underway. So again, we were trying to bring everything under cost. Let's see. Everything else is pretty much in line. I mean, we had we're always it's hard to get right down to this penny of things because you just don't know where the numbers are going to come in. But that 15,000 is what went back to the general fund at the end of the day. The next page kind of has it all. That's what the budget looks like on my end when I see it. Most of it up to the uniforms is governed by the village as a whole. So those are salaries and wages and those kind of things. But so that's the overall budget. Any questions so far? I know I'm kind of going through it fast. No? Okay. Next is our monthly or our year-to-date incidents. Just as a highlight, I kind of made some notes. Not a lot has changed. You'll see, for instance, our animal complaints are about the same. Damage to property is about the same. Disturbance calls are about the same. You'll see that a lot of these things stayed pretty stagnant. When you get down to that first page, though, you'll see that our thefts for 2020, we were at 24, and last year we had 11. That you want to see those numbers. It doesn't mean that people are stealing less. What it means is that there's a lot more vigilance from our police department. There's a lot more, whether it's education pieces or just the squad cars rolling down the street, just people are not committing those crimes. They fluctuate from every year. So this year last year we had 11, next year we had 40. And so it just depends. But I know that the staff is doing their due diligence to try to prevent those things. Theft from autos, those are about the same. You'll see the 911 disconnects. Again, they're about the same. Same with the SysTMS calls, were about the same, 169. Check properties and vacation checks were always about the same. It always seems to be like the same people that leave. A big improvement that I saw, and I really stress this to the staff, is our open doors. So businesses leave open doors. They, whether they leave quickly or an oversight or whatever. And I really made it a point that I wanted them out checking doors. Now, our business areas we have them in quadrants. So each officer, the night officer, is required to check a minimum of 2 quadrants per shift. It doesn't take very long, but they do have to get physically out of the car and wiggle doors. And because they did that, they went from 14 the year before to 77. So if you see the numbers, they should almost always stay identical unless we're doing something to step that up. And so that is a big step up on their behalf, and I'm really glad that they did that. Moving on, traffic crashes were about the same. You saw the report. 12 or 11 or 10 or however many are being documented by the Traffic Safety Commission. It's not an overwhelming number. There are 12 crashes. Honestly, it's one a month. So, and for a town like Cross Plains that has Highway 14 bustling through here, and you've got 18,000 plus cars driving through here every day, that's a pretty low number. Another big change was the parking complaints, and that what that number carries is our partnership with the public facilities and making sure that we're enforcing the snow so they can clean the roads. So we've stepped that up. I talked to Jerry about that and promised that we would be a strong partner in that. They have a hard job to do, and if cars are violating that, it becomes such a problem for them. The last page on there, you'll see our traffic arrests are about the same. Traffic complaints are about the same. What you will see the big step up is our traffic stops. So they're almost double, or at least almost 200 extra traffic stops. Again, this is something that I know that the community really wants us to do, to slow people down, get people to stop at stop signs. My staff has more than done their fair share. Of course, I have a fair share of those traffic stops myself. So we're all kind of working to work with the community. The next, I'm not going to go through all these. You can read them. We handled a lot of significant calls, as you guys can see. I think that this is the part that I think people would be surprised. We've had multiple sexual assaults. One of them, a big one that everybody knew about, which was the Portage teacher that happened here in town. So that was our case. So there's quite a bit of information here for you to peruse. Projects and programs. So if you look at the second to the last page, the new programs are taser and less than lethal. The body cam program we are ready to go. We just don't have body cams. And the reason that is because of what's going on in the technology world. We are backordered, and that includes our radios, which is something that we got approved for 2022. There is no date. They haven't given me a date. So we'll probably have to pay that bill just so I can make sure I take it out of this money. But chances are I might not see a radio till 2023. Our radios are going bad. So I had to try to order new batteries, and all the batteries are discontinued for that model. There just aren't any. So I'm at a point where if we start having trouble, we're probably gonna have to be swapping batteries. I know I reached out to the fire. They don't have any. EMS, they don't have any. So I might put it out to the rest of the other police departments to see if they have batteries. But the radios we carry are the same ones you carry, and they're like 15 years old. I can't even believe they still turn on because the frequency is bad. You go into Quick Trip, you can't hear us. So if you were thinking of a spot where something might go awfully wrong, that's a spot. And so it's highly trafficked. And we go in there, you can't hear us, can't hear them. So it's a problem. So radios don't work. Yeah, it's terrible. So we're working on it. We've got the products ordered, but we haven't seen them. Obviously, we participate in a lot of community events, a lot of these things. National Night Out kind of took a little year off, but we came back last year strong, and we expect it to be bigger this year. Community parades, we always participate in. Since me being here, I took on these two initiatives, and they've been well received. Thanksgiving and Christmas, feeding the people that are in need in our community. Fortunately, we don't have a lot of need, but we do have some need. There are some people in our community that really benefit from that. I've been doing a lot of de-escalation training. Matter of fact, I have another one scheduled here for the bank, Cross Plains Bank, just teaching staff on how to deal with de-escalate a situation. And that I did it at Piggly Wiggly, the library, just, as people begin to socialize again, they're not as good dealing with people anymore. And so teaching staff how to, stay calm and de-escalate a situation. I've been doing a lot of that. Our drug take back event was well received. We were able to recover about 100 pounds of prescription drugs that were given back, which is quite a bit, but what's that? Yeah, it was quite a bit of drugs. So we've done multiple traffic initiatives. I think people have received those well. I have not had one complaint about us doing traffic initiative. As a matter of fact, in most communities, if you start hammering traffic, you hear about hammering traffic. I have not heard one time somebody complain about it. I think people appreciate us being vigilant, and especially in those. Yeah. So I think the initiatives are still working, and we're going to continue them, as I can. Obviously, I only have so much budget to do these kind of events, so I'm trying to be strategic on how we do it. School resource officer, the job description was changed to what they termed a community resource officer. So Officer Cyber is in the school throughout the day, in and out all day long. And he also is attending the feeder schools. He goes there, develops relationships with the kids, feeder schools in Middleton. So he's not always here. He's in and out working with like 6 or 7 schools now. So it's been a well received, and it's a good program. And with that, the CRO now has established some protocols on how to deal with kids to kind of make it more of a school-wide event. Next is the patrol. So I keep a statistic of how much coverage we provide the village. Obviously, we aim to be here 24/7. It's nearly impossible. Last year, I was down an officer pretty much all year long, whether one of them got hurt, fell down, broke some ribs. I had one out with COVID. I had another one out with maternity leave. And so it was a bad year for just staffing. Plus having senior staff like I have an officer with 7 weeks vacation. So he has to take all that time. So, I mean, we were hurting. So, but even so, we were able to cover 87% of the time. There was 230 hours of overtime used by staff, which was about $9,800. We have a budget of 10,000, so we maintain that. The one thing that I do I'm gonna have to do something about. I worked this last year again. I had to work about over 200 hours extra just for coverage. So I feel lots of times for me, a lot of my chief duties are being done after work because I'm still handling calls and those kind of things. And so I'm going to have to somehow wiggle that down because it's wearing, I'm working sometimes 100 hours in a pay period. And so, if you do the math, I get 160 hours of vacation. So technically I'm actually losing all my vacation and then some. So I've got to do something about that. And I just wanted to share too, the national average right now for officers is 2.5 officers. So technically this community should have 10 officers on staff. That, so to look at that, that's the national average. So obviously some departments have way more, and like us, we're way down. But, at some point we need to start looking at that, because as you see, the increase in cases continues to go up. So since I took over the department in 2020, we've had a 60% increase in calls. So it's a lot. Last year we had 15% over, and then 39% in 2020. So I mean, right now we're already at a level higher than we were last year. So it's not stopping, and we're a lot busier. And then we talked about, so all officers have to maintain their certification, which requires 24 hours of continued education. I got to find 24 hours of training for them to go to and receive some sort of, we actually did an average of 55 hours. Some officers had a little more, some officers had a little less, but all of them met the requirement for the state. We're actually doubling our training. Future initiatives is the last page. So the goal is to complete the emergency operation plan. We have a really good start on that. And I'm now meeting with all the team members individually to really put together this plan. This is a new role that was added to my responsibilities here. So as the emergency management director, I just have gone to some trainings and try to learn how to better serve the community in that capacity. So we're going to be meeting. I know that Justin and I will be meeting, and all of us will be meeting individually, so I can understand their roles and their expectations in this process. And then my hopes is to at least have a tabletop exercise where we exercise the plan, in a room like this, and have multiple scenarios and those kind of things. And at some point, I actually want to do a scale, if not 2023, definitely 2024, where we actually have a live scale exercise, something really, where we, probably close down a street and see how would we respond in an active mode. We're still working on policies. The policy manual is about this thick. There's a lot of policies that I can tell just by the way the policy is written that they were written for a person at some point. They don't make sense to have over policy and over restrict your staff. So I'm kind of weeding through those. My goal is to get those completely up and running by the end of the year. The field training manual is being updated as we speak. We have a new person that will probably be starting here soon. And so I'm going to have him help us with the field training manual. He'll be able to identify quickly things that don't make sense to him. So this is timely to do that. I was able to do that at my other job, and I was able to produce a much better book when you've got staff that knows how to field train and then staff going through it. It's really important to incorporate them because they're the ones actually, it's affecting them, so they can then, kind of give us some information. My plan is to update the website and Facebook page. They're already updated now, but I think that we could do better and be more informative in the community. So there's going to be some things that I plan on doing with that. Restorative Justice Court. This is a new program that I just met with them again today. We're working on the MOU. So anybody who's under the age of 18, if they get in trouble in town, the first thing we will do is try, instead of enforcing the law and writing them tickets or sending them to some kind of court, is to try to put them together with a restorative program, more of a see if we can help before we just simply slap cuffs on it or write a ticket that usually a parent pays, or try to do some kind of community service. This will actually be a partnership with YWCA out of Madison. They're already doing it with several police departments, one of them being Middleton. And so it kind of works really well with us because we share the same school district. So this falls in line with, with restorative practices rather than impunitive, being impunitive. Traffic Safety Commission initiative. That's this. Lieutenant Reddy's been assigned to be part of that. We do have a lot of traffic issues. So, he's going to continue with that initiative and see how we can better it, maybe involved. I don't know if it should sit here or if it's, the listening sessions or the discussion sessions should be separate. I don't know, with the partnership from us or a kind of a thumbs up. I don't know how you guys feel about that, but I spoke to community about this. I invited the community to this. Nobody came. So I think people complain about these things, but I don't think they really want to. They don't go to meetings. I mean, do you think of our body cam?
For national night out or something.
Yeah.
Maybe try that, and just something else that's gathering
Yeah.
people in the community and give it to.
But you think about it, even when we did body cams, we didn't have any.
I
I mean, you heard about it, I heard about it, but nobody came to any of our, and we did it multiple times, including. So all we can do is put it out there, right? And so I think we continue. Then the last thing is an officer wellness program. I feel strongly about that, and so I want to get that accomplished. I'm seeing if one of my officers will take the lead on it. I really believe that right now we're kind of in a tough spot. Law enforcement, there's not a lot of people applying. During our process, I only had 15 applicants, and I was able to weed half of them the first day. So there's not a lot to pick from. And the fact that that is happening, some of our officers, the morale is down, especially areas like this where pay isn't very high. The morale is down, and so it's important that they survive this job, that this is just a job, and mental health is huge. And so I spend a lot of time with them. So, I know their baseline and those kind of things, and I'm able to quickly, kind of makeshift, their attitudes and things like that, and provide them with opportunities, but that only goes so far. So we need to have some kind of program in place that helps them navigate those things on their own, because we can't be with them. Besides traffic crashes, suicide is the number 2 reason why officers die. So they're going through a roller coaster of events all day long, and then they're supposed to just stop and be normal husbands and wives and children, and it just doesn't work. It's really tough. So that is something that I really want to focus on. So my hope is that next year we'll have a really good wellness program. Okay, that was a mouthful. All right.
Very good. Committee discussions. Number 1, discussion of possible action regarding neighborhood watch program.
I'm going to stop sharing this and then bring up the other. Give me 1 second.
Candace went through some track. She, I think, has done some really good work and is sharing a little bit of that concept.
If I can find it. I have yours.
Oh, it shouldn't be the easy for you. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, that's all right. I'll find it. I think it's right here. Okay, there we go.
That looks good. So this was what Candace had kind of come up with as a starting point for yard signs, basically. And one of the things I like about it is it's visual, and it talks about us all being in it together, kind of the engagement and education piece. So we know there's a lot of complaints of that Valley and Brewery. And we also know that a lot of those are our friends and neighbors not paying attention. And I think this is a program that could engage more people in our safety process. I think the concept is pretty simple. She has a belief that we can get sponsors, have it paid. It might be something we could give away at the National Night Out, things like that. But the awareness piece and the community involvement piece are kind of the bigger things I think we're looking for in kind of moving where it's not just officers responsible for safety. We're kind of all responsible a little bit more for each other's safety. So she's got a few key symbols: a car, a light bulb, a lock, and some eyes. And it's really basic reminders that a lot of times chief and staff will put out on Facebook, on social media. And I think it's a part of engaging more people in the public safety process.
Were we talking about yard signs like this too?
This is a yard sign. This is a yard sign concept.
So it looks like if I remember correctly, the one-sided yard signs would be about $350 a sign, and that would, for 1,000 signs, obviously $350. And if you did it both sides, it went into the $5 range. I don't think it's gonna be hard to find sponsors, especially if, we could be a sponsor on there. Maybe even fire, EMS, we could all just, and put logos, but you could also go out to businesses or whatever. My only concern with sponsors is that I think you would find more sponsors than you have space.
Right.
And so when people wonder, well, how'd you decide that? Because they're gonna want their business on 1,000 plus these sides. So that, that is a piece that we probably will have to navigate at some point.
No, and I think it needs a little more, discussion and thought, and I definitely think Candace should be part of, our discussion on it. So I think the best thing to do is to put it out and, this is kind of the first concept. I like the wording and a lot of what's on there. I really like to capture the good and send a picture to the chief of police because I want to catch people doing things right.
Yeah.
We always talk about an accident or something bad or some near misses, but let's talk about the person who helped someone out, whether it's at a crosswalk or, responding to something. I think those are pretty powerful things to maybe.
Well, I think it encourages good behavior. If you're
Absolutely.
posting it, people, will encourage it. So and it's shared, like everything we do on Facebook is shared multiple times. I think it's just good. That's the way people socialize. So I think it's good. Maybe do you want to just leave it on the agenda and make a decision next
I
month?
think have a discussion and maybe just maybe Candace and I can just maybe throw a couple ideas out for implementation a little bit. I do like the events where people gather to give them some public safety info because we've tried. The only one that we got people super engaged was when people were upset. I don't want to do that. I want to engage people in the positive around our community. So I like the design of the symbols of, I think it should be two-sided just because so many of the yards, you can see both sides depending on, especially on the Main Street corridor and P, people go both ways.
You can look at it some village signage on posts, in the village.
Yeah, absolutely.
Business districts,
Absolutely.
schools.
Yeah, I mean, it'd be definitely something you could, once we get this concept ironed out, maybe get it out to the parks, to the, parks committee, maybe they would take it on, put on in the parks. The village may take it on and put it somewhere else. I think it's more awareness. I mean.
And I think the timing is in a better place with some of the outreach and different social media aspects and some of the outreach Chief Tony and the staff have done.
Yeah.
I think our overall our staff is looking more at partnership with community policing versus just kind of the enforcement piece. And I think communities that do that are engaged in a more positive way. So yeah, I think we just add it to the next agenda. I don't think we need to take action. I think Candace did some good work and she also got us some pricing from Latitude. And I can tell you from having owned my own business, those are his costs that he's giving us. And it's a pretty huge discount. Usually when the yard signs or something nice, it's 15, 20 each. So Rick wants to be a partner.
Okay. All right, I'm gonna stop sharing that. I'll bring up the other.
The next agenda item was to talk a little bit about Brewery Road. And we're not going to take action on this either, but what I wanted to do was get it in front of you. So Trustee Paul Mikowski's holding some visioning and listening sessions. And there's a couple of concepts out there. Brewery Road is a wider road. It's going to be redone. We know that for sure. And there's some options. So there's options to a sidewalk on one side, a sidewalk on both sides. This is the existing condition. It's a super wide straight road. That's how it sits today. This is one with an east sidewalk. This is the one with an east path versus a sidewalk. And that one has a west sidewalk. That one has a both side sidewalk. And there are some challenges to get those designs to fit. There's the higher hill on one side. There's also some utility things and stuff that needs to be looked at. So they're not at a decision. that they're gathering information.
When is the rules?
It's in the budget, I think, for next year, summer of 2023 or spring of 2023.
I think it's happening next year.
The part of the reason for it is it was more of a patch after the flood. It was temporarily cleaned up and temporarily paved. And, it needs to be done. It needs to be done right. And we want to have the safety engineered into the new roadway. So
Underground utilities are in there too, correct?
correct. There's a lot of reasons to do this. I do think there'll also be some improvement to that culvert that kind of leads to the flood of the water.
Sure.
The third item was just a typo, just
Yeah,
a doubler.
I took it out of this.
So for future items, I don't necessarily think the Brew Road needs to be on the next agenda item, but I do think that the discussion around neighborhood watch or just that awareness piece should be on the next agenda item.
Okay, and then we do have a scheduled meeting that we should probably bring an update to the committee with Jay
Yes.
regarding our participation in the village hall / police department build out. I don't think that has been ironed out yet. A lot of the focus right now is on the financial piece, which obviously that's going to be the guiding force behind all of it. So there's some of that, some timelines, borrowing, buying property if that needs to be. But at some point, there's going to be the public safety piece needs to be in there. So I know Jay has kind of divided everything in different committees. And then the subcommittee that reports back to the village board, which I sit on, will kind of get all the information from all the committees. And we're one of those committees, along with, the police department has, I have a couple officers on that committee to give some thought about, where positioning and locations and of how things should flow. I think the courts have their committee. So.
And I think it would be good to get a little just report on the feedback on how trial days went. Because it was some added, that's, I hope we have a nice weather day.
I won't put it on the agenda because it won't be an action item, but we'll just remember to ask you during the member. Anything else that you guys would like to see on here?
I think after tonight's meeting, we're looking at 30, 45 minutes.
Yeah.
No videos.
No. So third Tuesday still working? That would be May 17th.
Yep.
Okay.
All right.
So we'll be set there. I would entertain a motion to adjourn. Randy, do I have a second? Second, Cleve. Second. All those in favor of adjourning, say aye. Aye. Opposed, say the same. We're adjourned. Thank you. Good work, Chief. Thank you.
So Doc Esser called me 2 weeks ago. Yeah. And Cody Gregson's been getting a hold of him and his messages are gone on. So what